Hello everybody, welcome back to Mason Zero ASMR. My name is Mason, and today we're going to be launching into the second episode of reading from the Homeworld Historical and Technical Briefing book. So this book came with the original Homeworld game from the late 90s, and is about this thick. Came out in 1999, and it goes through a lot of the behind-the-scenes details of the story of the game, a lot of the lore, and other things. That's a very story-rich game, but there's still a lot missing, and that's all in this manual, if you will. So we learned about some of the origins of Kharak and the people who live there and their quest to go into space and search out their homeworld. So, where we left off was about the Mothership. That was the next category. So we're going to start reading there. The Mothership. In the first triad of 1159, a final plan was accepted for the vessel that would follow the path indicated by the guidestone. What had delayed the project for so long was simply that no one, neither astronomers nor religious leaders, could say for certain what had brought us to Kharak, and so none could say what an expedition would encounter. It was finally decided to build a vessel capable of doing everything, including establishing a new colony deep coreward. Known simply as the Mothership, this vessel would be part carrier, part survey ship, part factory complex, and most importantly, the temporary home for millions of our people frozen in cryogenic sleep. It would have to be able to deal with the great unknown reaches of the galaxy, and whatever discoveries or threats they might contain. It would be the greatest construction project in our history. Ministers from every clan abandoned their cloistered competitive policies and pooled every resource to develop stratagems and designs, and then allocated them to the various industrial hubs throughout the polar zones. In the meantime, clans that had been trailing the cutting edge in technology and production turned all their efforts toward agricultural work, feeding those who were occupied by the construction effort. Construction challenges. The planned mothership was so massive it took 20 years simply to build up the infrastructure required for the construction project. Asteroids from the debris belt were pulled into a parking orbit around Kharak. There, manned cutter ships used high-energy lasers to break the planetoids into manageable sections that could be towed into the great maw of the phased disassembler array. The PDA used a series of fusion torches to reduce the planetoid chunks into their component elements. Robotic materials plants then combined those elements into whatever alloys and composites were required for the grand task at hand. Many of the lessons learned there were refined and implemented into the next generation of resource-gathering ships that would serve the Mothership herself. The next step was to construct the orbiting scaffold where the Mothership would be built. This framework took 10 years to complete and is the single largest structure ever built. New disciplines in macro engineering had to be created and put into practice just to complete this construction yard. The scaffold measures 25.6 kilometers long and is stationed in middle orbit around our world. Easily visible from the planet's surface, it is the only moon Kharak has ever known. It has been a natural fixture in the night sky for almost 4 generations. Only the eldest of our people can remember a time when the skies were dark and there was no glittering lattice work to remind our people of their destiny. next 25 years, the Mothership slowly took form inside the scaffold, building up in layers from the center sections outward until the final layer of ceramic armor was laid just last year. For the last 8 decades, more than 10,000 technicians, along with another 25,000 robots, have worked on this ship continuously. Many of the fusion torches and materials plants that broke down and processed the planetoids early in the construction program were cannibalized and incorporated into the Mothership itself. During the course of this massive project, 2,357 personnel gave their lives for the future of our people, and their names are engraved on the central hyperdrive core of the Mothership. They will never be forgotten, and their brave spirits will precede this vessel into the gulf of hyperspace. Mothership sections and systems. In such a huge vessel dedicated to so many tasks, it is necessary to devote entire areas toward fulfilling each part of the ship's mandate. Fleet Foundry. The Mothership is designed to be a mobile construction yard on par with the original orbital facilities which created the megavessel. The automated manufacturing bay is capable of high-speed production of vessels, from tiny scouts to larger ships that are yet to be designed. Various parallel production bays allow for dozens of larger components to be cast and assembled at the same time, thus radically reducing the time needed to build larger vessels. Ship components are based on many of the modular technologies being used across various hull designs, which saves time and allows for faster simultaneous construction. The foundry floor is capable of using multiple construction tracks to simultaneously build a fleet of scouts, assemble a squadron of corvettes, and create enough ordnance for both sets of new ships. A large hangar provides docking sleeves for a huge array of vessels to be serviced, and the same sleeves can be used as berths should the Mothership need to enter hyperspace with a large fleet of auxiliary ships. None of this would be possible without the immense quantity of raw materials brought in by the resource collector vessels, built around the model of the original cutting ships, which were used to break down raw materials for the initial construction of the scaffold and the Mothership. The resource collectors are designed to reduce and acquire a variety of space material, ranging from solid planetoids to gas nebula. The collectors then return to the Mothership and transfer the contents of their holds for processing through a phased disassembler array. While this PDA is smaller and quite a bit more efficient than the orbital array used to supply the scaffold, it works on the identical principle of arrayed fusion torches. It will reduce any material to its componential elements, allowing a magneto-hydrodynamic shunt field to sort the vaporized elements according to atomic weight and carry them to the storage shells. The massive honeycomb of storage shells, almost 3 cubic kilometers of storage space, lies just under the surface of 65% of the Mothership's hull. This allows for quick access and venting in the event of a jam or storage cell rupture, and provides a final layer of armor. And a little side note, figure 1.6. Inside the Mothership's main construction hangar, it is the single largest enclosed volume ever built, and will support shipbuilding on every scale possible. In this view, the vast main hangar is visible looming beneath a factory slab in the assembly area. Straightcraft docking sleeves are housed within these huge subdecks. Surface vehicles populate all sections of the hangar in great numbers. Highly versatile, they perform countless vital operations, from simple maintenance tasks to complex assembly. Now we have the navigation. The Mothership has 2 modes of travel. The first is based on conventional fusion drive technology and consists of a series of large fusion reactors designed to vent high-energy plasma through an opening in a shaped magnetic bottle. Maneuvering jets are fed plasma from the main exhaust through a series of conduits, and this allows a portion of the main thrust to be diverted to maneuvering. The mothership's secondary drive is less understood, but it is the system that makes this voyage possible. Toward the lower aft portion of the ship lies the large shielded area containing the hyperspace module. This is a direct copy of the one found under the sands of Kartoba, but expanded 12-fold to accommodate a vessel of the mothership's mass. Even though the effect has been tested extensively through ships fitted with test modules of various sizes, our control and understanding of the effect is somewhat limited. This has resulted in a need for massive energy to induce the wavefront, prohibiting its use on any vessel too small to carry at least 3 industrial fusion plants. And the side note that it references to, just A7, Hyperspace Physics. The solid-state hyperspace module is a quantum oscillation device capable of generating a waveform through any surrounding structure. It does this in order to induce an effect known as quantum tunneling. Because the device was reverse engineered, the exact workings of the module are still very uncertain. All our scientists know about the efforts of hyperspace transport has been derived from limited empirical data. Theoretical data is almost totally non-existent. The risks involved in employing a technology we know so little about on such a vital mission could not be avoided. The raw materials needed to build the hyperspace module are extremely rare on Kharak. Only a few prototype drives were built prior to the mothership module because of this material shortage. And here figure 1.8. The hyperspace module under construction in orbit. Although the core of the device is entirely solid state, the power and control systems embedded within it are the most complex devices ever built. Only the upper part of a hemisphere can still be seen bulging above the surrounding construction. There is another drawback to our limited understanding of hyperspace. We can only induce a linear tunnel effect of massive proportions with relatively crude control of distance. The module is projected to have a range of 2,500 light-years for a single waveform event, and in order to trigger the drive, we must charge the module with all the energy required for such a stunning distance. Should we wish to travel a more appropriate and cautious distance, we must crudely halt the wave effect by discharging the module's energy and dropping back into normal space-time. The hyperdrive module is programmed for 3 priority interrupts. The achieved target interrupt is based on our own astronavigation technology, which takes a sighting in normal space and discharges the module once the time versus distance hyperspace algorithms state we are roughly near our programmed coordinates. The anomaly interrupt occurs when a gravimetric anomaly is detected by ship sensors, and the vessel is automatically returned to normal space to either gather resources or, in the case the disturbance is actually another vessel, investigate further. Finally, the safety interrupt occurs when ship's control computer sense any irregularities in either the waveform effect or the mothership's hull integrity. All 3 interrupts empower the navigation computer to automatically drop the ship into normal space. In our little side note here, further hyperdrive limitations. Another problem with our current understandings of hyperspace is that we can only take limited gravimetric readings of the normal space through which we are tunneling. This means we can detect a mass that disagrees with our navigational data. But should we wish to know anything about the anomaly, we must interrupt the hyperspace module. Gravity wells also have a destabilizing effect on hyperspace travel. Test ship losses have taught us that a hyperdrive must be shut down far outside any star system's gravitational curve. Fleet Command. As the project neared completion and the full size and complexity of the mothership became clear, system coherency specialists encountered a problem that seemed to defy solution. In even the most basic function simulations, there was so much data to be analyzed and so many responses per second required. The projected bridge crew grew into the hundreds. As new command staff were added to the simulation, the hierarchy became completely unmanageable. It became apparent that in any sort of crisis, the mothership would quickly suffer from communications paralysis. Computational experts tried, but no simulated intellect system they devised could be trusted completely, and the whole project was at the verge of collapse when a young neuronics expert stepped forward with a desperate plan. At the time, Karen Sajet was working on experimental biological circuits. That would mimic brain functions. When she heard that an information bottleneck was facing the systems of the mothership, she realized her research could be put to another purpose. Neuroscientist Sajet suggested using an existing brain, her own, to bridge the gap between living nerve branches and the mothership's data shunt. And our little aside about the Karen Sajet solution. The drawback that her research was still decades away from even a basic neuronic interface, and the only way to patch someone into the data systems of the mothership was to lay a nerve trunk open and attach the shunt directly with a biocircuit interface in order to serve as a living command core to the mothership. One of our people would have to volunteer to be surgically altered so that most of the nerve trunks serving limbs and senses would be patched into ship systems instead. The subject would then have to be embedded permanently in the bridge of the ship. Karen Sajet refused to allow her technology to be used on anyone else. She is now the mind of the mothership and the voice of Fleet Command. As Fleet Command, she is capable of handling hundreds of alerts and updates per second, while analyzing what tasks can be handled automatically and which situations need to be brought to the attention of the crew. Should the ship come under fire, she will instantly analyze systems across the entire length of the ship and monitor all response activities. Fleet Command observes the status of all vessels and updates their positions. Research reports are also processed through her central core, along with information on construction projects. Fleet Intelligence. It is the job of Fleet Intelligence to analyze incoming data from probes, observation equipment, and sensors. Centered just below the main bridge is a large spherical chamber containing work and comm stations, with data shunts centered around a full holographic projection pit. When the mothership is underway, this pit will be manned permanently by shift teams composed of the best scientists, diplomats, linguists, and tactical officers, all specially selected for their knowledge and adaptability. Fleet Intelligence has access to not only the mothership sensor arrays, but to the fleet archives as well. Whatever the mothership should encounter in deep space, Fleet Intelligence will interpret the data and give as accurate an analysis as the situation permits, offering tentative conclusions and tactical recommendations. Cryogenics. The major stumbling block for the plans to start a new colony was life support. The resources needed to keep 600,000 people alive for years in deep space are simply impossible to store and transport. The mothership would have to be so huge, no number of fusion plants could move it. To solve the problems of a long space flight, our life scientists turned to cryogenic suspension. With the technology tested and perfected, engineers began filling the cryonic hold with the 600,000 cryonic pods that would be required for the voyage. and our long side note here, A10, cryonic studies. Biotechs study numerous desert-dwelling animals that go into a form of suspended animation deep under the sands during the hottest times of high summer. The biological mechanism that Kharak life forms use to deplete their cells of water to avoid vaporization expansion during the high temperature exposure was recreated artificially in order to solve a similar but opposite problem, the destruction of cells due to ice expansion during cryogenic freeze. Early experiments with adaptive cryogenic technology were successful. And in 1185, Ray Magan was placed into a cryogenic pod and placed aboard a small probe vessel set to circumnavigate the Kharak system in a cross-elliptic path. This journey took 6 months to complete, and it was planned that pilot Magan would not awaken nor consume life support elements during the entire voyage. The test was successful, and the only side effect was a book of poetry pilot Magan wrote afterward to describe the long, vivid dream that he experienced while in cryogenic fugue. Volunteers have chosen to surrender as much as 12 years of their lives before the voyage even starts, in order to be processed for cold sleep. First, they are prepared and placed in their cryonic pods, where they are slow frozen over a period of 2 weeks. The pods are then stored in holding areas deep under the surface of Kharak, until 100 are ready to be placed on a rack module and boosted into space together aboard the heavy lifter units. These rack modules are then loaded into large cryo trays. A single tray provides power and stable containment for 1,000 rack modules, 100,000 individuals in all. The 6 cargo trays will be loaded into the mothership once the hyperspace drives have been successfully tested. Until then, they will wait in a stable orbit near the scaffold. Figure 1.7. Inside the cryogenics hold, the pods are widely spaced apart in the buffer solution. Due to the narrow temperature tolerances of the cryopod systems, a large bath of buffer fluid is necessary to maintain even temperature in the hold. In the event of a total power failure in the hold and spontaneous malfunction of all auxiliary fusion pylons, this system will still support its frozen occupants for 6 months if the insulated walls of the hold are not breached. The vast hall aboard the mothership containing our people is in the most protected and armored area of the vessel. The cryonic vault stretches for 3 kilometers and is nearly 1 kilometer in length. All that is required for life support is a constant supply of power to the freezing units. A deviation of even a single degree can be fatal to the occupants if it occurs outside the intricate revivification procedure. In light of this, even though the 600,000 pods draw their power from the main reactor core, some auxiliary fusion pylons are set into the vault walls, each one capable of handling the power demands of the vault by itself. Boarding and cryogenic placement have occurred on schedule for the past decade. So guys, that is where I'm going to leave it off for today. In the next one, we'll learn about the auxiliary vessels, such as fighter craft. I hope you are very much enjoying the Homeworld historical and technical briefing. Homeworld is a fantastic game series, and if you have never played it, you definitely should if you are into sci-fi or strategy games. Until I see you in the next video, I hope you have a great day and night and week, and I can't wait till the next one. See you next time.